stream. See, Monique is here, and Jonathan is here, and Cole is here, and a trader. We have a trader in our midst. You know what I mean, don't you see?
Yeah. Took me a minute.
Yeah. Oh, well, I figured you would get it. All right. Exam schedule, folks. For this class, I guess 9:30 class will be next Thursday, May the 10th. And it's at 8 o'clock in the morning again. I'd rather start at 8:30 if that's okay with you all. All right, 8:30. Now, remember, we're only going to give you 2 chapters on the exam. Chapters what, 18, 19? But now I have a makeup test ready for what, 16, 17, 15, 16, 17. That test we will get through so well on. Okay, haven't seen your grades on yet, they were that bad. Another reason I didn't give it back too, I think that test somehow had been compromised. There was a couple of good grades on it that surprised me. Bad grades didn't surprise me. Good grades did. Okay, and that was none of you all. You didn't make the best grade, but did okay. All right. Anyway, Cindy, I hate to see you change. You're good as anybody else in here in the county. So you think about going to education?
Yeah, like I'm good at accounting, but just like all the words come in. I think my heart is for education.
It's like the teacher elementary.
It'd either be like, it'd be math. I really want to do like either 5th grade math or high school.
I don't know, do they departmentalize and separate? Of course, way back when I taught 6th grade, I had to teach every subject. And anyhow, then I got the principal departmentalized a little bit with one of the instructors. He liked science and I liked math. And he took his 6th grade and, mine, we swapped a couple of classes. So that started departmentalization at school. Sure, of course you're better in, When I have a 6th grader come in one day and say, Mr. Lester, you've been pronouncing that wrong. It's not superlative, it is superlative. But that 6th grader and I had a long friendship. So over the years. But anyhow, English was not my niche. And other things were. Same thing with you all. Okay, graduation's coming around quick. And, exams are coming around quick. Just everything's coming around too quick. But anyway, on that makeup test on chapter 15, 16, 17, you can still have your page of notes, rewrite them if you want to, you can still have your page of ratio. I still had a couple of students, none of you all, thank goodness. A couple of students came in, I need a pen. Well, I forgot to bring those ratios. Do you have an extra copy? And they had no notes. They had no calculator. But that's not my image of a college student. That doesn't come to class with anything for preparation. So hopefully, whoever's live streaming and you hear this, hopefully on the exam you bring pencil, you bring calculator, you bring ratios if you need to, whatever.
So when is the makeup test? Is that going to be the same?
Same day. Now, if we don't start at 8:30, I've got another exam starting at 10, but you all can stay at 12 o'clock if you want to. Have y'all looked at the exam schedule yet? Okay, let's see. Do you have a class? You have a class at 11 o'clock today, John? You do, Cole? You do? Well, that exam's at 10 o'clock. No, it's on Tuesday. It will not be on Thursday. All right, let's see. Do you have a class at 12:30 today? No. Then you're in good shape. You can stay in here as long as you want to. Like I say, I will start my cost test at 10 o'clock, but you will, I'll use 2 rooms, whatever it takes, okay? I just want to give you plenty of time and give you all benefit of the doubt. I don't think any of you all, thinking back the last 3 grades, I don't think any of you are in danger of getting below a C, okay? Okay, we got all of you pre-registered. Okay, now back to chapter 18, and we got to look at 19 a little bit. Now, chapter 18, I gave you certain problems, and we may not even get to them today. What were those problems, Cole, in chapter 18?
I just know 4A.
The what?
18, 4A.
Is that the only one?
For sure.
And that was the big one, I guess, that took into a lot of things. Well, my cell phone never substitutes for a mouse, I don't guess. Let me see if I have. So we're going to look at this problem. Now, we looked at a lot of exercise. Folks, chapter 17, 18 is easy. The test would just be multiple choice, probably about 40 of them. And just an introduction to managerial accounting. Now, many of you are enrolled in managerial accounting. Many that are here, many that are not here. We're giving out awards today, and of course, they give out senior awards, and 3 seniors get an award, 2 juniors, 2 sophomores. That's 7 awards. I don't remember who the sophomores were. One of the ladies, Major Kane, I've never seen her. I don't think who the other sophomore was. Now, some of you are still freshmen, aren't you? But anyway, all of them were accountancy or business administration with a double major, accounting management or something, all 7 of the awards. And the top award gets 500. The juniors and the other seniors get 400. Depends how much money is donated. And then, of course, sophomore, I think, get $200 for the award. So that's the day, and they'll get that over with, okay? So maybe some of you all will get your averages up and be in for some kind of award next year. Okay, what page is this problem on, folks?
9:14.
Now that's exercise, 9:14, be 9:17, wouldn't it? All right, determine the amount of missing. Was this the one I gave you, Cole? 948?
4A.
480. Oh, that's just putting in missing numbers. Not the best problem in the world, we're going to handle it, I guess.
Yeah, there was 3 parts to it.
Yeah, I know. Prepare the statement of cost of goods manufactured. That's what I wanted to do in the income statement. The missing parts here, you have to work backwards. You had 2 companies. You'd have done one company out of being happy, but you got materials purchased. Now, if you got cost of direct materials used, 918,000. All right. And we had materials purchased. What do you subtract from what to fill in a part? How do you fill in a part? What do you subtract from what? You know, beginning inventory, that formula goes like this. Beginning inventory plus purchases gives us materials available minus ending inventory gives us materials used. So take that and plug in those numbers. So what was the answer to be there, Cole?
To be
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, the first blank.
111,500.
All right. Let me flip on down to that. Well, I lost it here somewhere. Did you get 111,500? And you can see here, we just took the 950 purchase plus the beginning inventory and subtracted materials used, and we were able to fill in ending materials inventory. Now, when we get on down to total manufacturing cost incurred during May, that we're going to take materials, labor, and overhead added together. So what'd you get on that one, Jonathan?
5,598,500.
All right, 5,598,500. All right, you had to take the 938,500. That was materials. You had to take labor and you had to take overhead. Materials, labor, and overhead added gives you manufacturing cost. Now, C part. Cost of goods manufactured. Now you've got to take the figure Jonathan gave me, add beginning inventory, and subtract ending inventory, and what you get? Work in process inventory. What'd you get, Monique? All right. You had to take this figure, cost of goods manufactured, add beginning work in process, subtract ending work in process. All right, E part. I guess D part, sales. Sales. Sid, did you get to work on that one? All right, here is your answer. All right, what are these figures here, Cole? 615, what is that?
615 is your finished goods.
All right, now look here at the so you had to add beginning finished goods and subtract ending finished goods, right? And you got wait, is that sales? Are we looking what is D looking for?
Cost of goods sold.
Okay, that works then. What I said works for that. Then I guess E was asking for sales, right? Gross profit. All right, then you take cost of goods sold here and subtract it from sales, and you get gross profit. All right, what is F asking for? All right, so we're going to take what? Gross profit and subtract what? What's the 1 million?
Operating expenses.
And that gives you net income. Okay, so you had little bits and pieces of a manufacturer statement and an income statement. I'm not going to labor on with this other company. Now, here we were supposed to make this statement of cost of goods manufactured. Now, you start off with beginning working, you got all these figures now, and you add, take materials inventory plus purchases, gives you materials available minus ending. So you got to get materials, labor is a one-liner, overhead here is a one-liner, and you've got manufacturing costs. We've already answered that. You add working process, and you subtract any working process, and you got a manufacturing statement, which goes over to the income statement. Let's see if we got the right company here. All right, we looked at Reiner Company here, Reiner, but they wanted for, I guess, Yakima Company, they wanted the cost of goods sold and the income statement. So you had to do both problems to answer the question. We know on the income statement, you take sales, you take beginning finished goods, cost of goods sold minus ending, and you get gross profit minus expenses, and you get net income. All right. Now, I want to add on for homework 5A. For 5A, a manufacturing statement and an income statement. Now, that is due, Thursday, the day of the exam. It's not this week's assignment. We've got other things for this week. That may end up being your bonus, so please try to do that. You've got a week and a couple of days. All right, let's turn over to 19. Start looking at it for a few minutes while I'm trying to look up on PowerPoint. All right, there's two types of cost accounting. We don't have time to look at both. We're going to look probably at the easier of the two, called job order costing. The other chapter we're not going to cover is called process. We'll get those in cost accounting or in manager or whichever or both. All right, so job order. Now, the chapter we're not covering is process. Your book is made in a process. Order, the company orders, books order, we order, whatever. These tables are just made in a process while we went through an assembly line. Your pencils and your calculators, process cost accounting. But now job order, you know of anything that you have to have it made especially for you? What would you have made especially for you? Tailor-made suit, tailor-made dress. How about a wedding dress like this sometimes? But business card, job order, just for Jonathan. But now, the printing business for business cards have went out of business because you can do it yourself, can't you, on the computer? You can do your letterhead paper and everything yourself. But anyhow, job order, how about a yacht? Those are made to order. Okay. How about cars maybe for driver's education? You have to have them special ordered. Well, two brakes, airplanes, they are job order. So now, if you went out and built a house is job order. It's made to your specs, just for you. It's not run off assembly line. So we do have a lot of job order products. Here's the two systems, job order and job process. A job order system records summaries caused by jobs. While jobs are still in the production process, they are part of work in process. As jobs are completed, they become part of finished goods. When the finished goods are sold, that's part of cost of goods sold, just like we did in the past chapter. The flow of manufacturing costs, we got materials, it goes into production and maybe into a warehouse when they're finished. But job order and job process can take some of the same steps. If you're building a house, though, that's just job order on site. Perpetual inventory systems are used. And we know we got perpetual or we got periodic, but we use perpetual. And we got materials, work in process, and finished goods. All right, an inventory ledger for job 71 or job 69 or job 70 or job 72. We're putting in hickory and oak and maple. Now, a furniture dealer may order from a furniture maker 10 tables. Then that would be job order if they're made specifically for that furniture company. All right, the materials account is a controlling account. A separate account for each type of materials is maintained in subsidiary ledgers, okay? All right, here's a materials ledger. How many you bought? How many were issued to the factory? How many you have left? Now, materials requisition, total issue was 2,000 for job 71, 11,000 for job 72, 22,000 for job 71, 11 more thousand for job 72, which is the same as here. Just the same as here, okay? But these were direct materials. You could also issue indirect materials. You will not be doing one of these cost sheets. All right, you make the journal entries now. We haven't made them, so this chapter you are going to have journal entries. These journal entries will stay with you through managerial and through cost. And these journal entries also would have been good for the next chapter. When you buy materials, you debit materials and you credit accounts payable. Now we're going to practice some entries in a minute. Now, when you issue materials to the factory, you debit work in process and credit materials. Now, employees work, they use time tickets for each job. Some may use electronic badges, clock cards, or in and out cards to clock in. Jonathan, where you work at? Used to have a clock.
So we have a little part on the back of our badge, and we just slide it in the machine.
Well, you have a barcode on the back of your van, and you just let the computer scan it. Well, if you work, you have to clock in. How do you clock in?
Like your number into a computer.
Okay. Then you work?
I work over the summer. I work at the Hampton Express. We type in our ID number and password boxes.
Look, we'll have a Panda Express.
Well, I'm from Kentucky, so that's where I go do it. I was trying to get, the closest one here is like up in Bentley, so it's like, yeah, not wrong.
So where?
Bentley.
Bristol has one. I've eaten it in Bristol. Okay. Y'all already eaten at a Panda Express?
It's expensive for no reason. It doesn't even taste that good.
What?
It's expensive for no reason. It doesn't even taste that good.
It's not bad. I just think it's really expensive, even on America. Some place you go out to eat.
Oh yeah, but I mean for fat, it's like fast food, Chinese, and I feel like.
Definitely nice, yeah. It's really, yes, sir. All right, but for that, yeah, it could be. All right, did you have to clock in, Sydney? Some places, like a factory, they'll have a security guard there when you clock in to make sure you're using your name badge and your photo picture for different companies, okay? So factory labor, now we're going to keep up with our labor report. Now labor is went into job 71 and job 72. Here are the time tickets. All right. What time is it right now, Jonathan? Military time. Some time clocks go by military time. What time is it now, military time? 10:02? All right, at 1 o'clock today, what time will it be, Cole? Military time? 1300. And then you get down, what, to 2300, 11 o'clock tonight? Okay, but some time clocks does use military time. But anyway, this is labor. Debit work in process and credit wages payable. All right, now they may have indirect labor, which you put into factory overhead. Now, factory overhead includes all factory costs except direct materials and direct labor. Indirect materials, indirect labor, factory power, utility bills, depreciation, all is at factory overhead. Now look at that entry for factory overhead. Look at that entry for factory overhead. You debit factory overhead, you credit materials, that was indirect materials. You credit wages payable, that's indirect wages. And you credit utilities payable and accumulate depreciation. Now we've got all three, but what is different? Now look at this. What do we debit? Look at this. What did we debit here, Claes, for materials? What? Work in process. What do we debit here for labor? Work in process. Now, what do we debit here for factory overhead? But it's got to go into work in process. It's got to. Now we can find actual overhead like this of 4,600, and we'd have to debit work in process and credit overhead for 4,600, or we may have an applied rate. All right, so we're going to have to calculate the factory overhead rate. Now, here is your formula for factory overhead. We take budgeted factory overhead, budgeted, estimated, and divide it by direct labor hours or machine hours. I'm going to put an H here and an H here. Or we may divide it by direct labor cost or dollars. So we have to learn to calculate a factory overhead rate. So here's your estimated factory overhead, and here's your formula. Predetermined factory overhead rate, 50,000 is estimated to be your overhead, 10,000 direct labor hours. So now we have $5 per direct labor hour. So if we used on a certain job 350 direct labor hours, we multiply that by $5 to give us the $1,750, okay? So now we debit work in process and we credit factory overhead. Now look at that number right there. How much is that? 42 what? 4250. But let's go back and look at the real overhead. How much is that? How much is that? 40 what? 40 what? All right, now let's go down to, now, if we drew us a T account, we debited factory overhead for 4,600, didn't we? That was our real cost. Now, to put it into the factory, we got an estimated cost here of $42.50. So we are under applied by $350. We're off by $350, under applied. All right. Now here, 46. All right, wait a minute. Now where did that? Oh, you had a balance of 200, and then 42.50 made. Wait a minute. You had a credit balance of 200. So when we credit 42.50 and 200, that is 44.50. So now we're only off how much? 4,600 is the 150 under applied. And we have to debit factory overhead and credit the other account. We're going to make this balance. Wherever it went, we'd have to debit factory overhead and credit an under over applied account. We'll look at that hopefully in a minute. Now we can take it out of cost of goods sold. That 150 over under applied, we could take it out of cost of goods sold. One's over and one's under. So here's how we got rid of that 150. we put it in cost of goods sold because in material, if it's material, we'd have to do something else with it. Okay, work in process is increased by materials, labor, and overhead. And you had your job cost sheets. Now, when we finish it, we've got the debit finished goods and credit work in process. And when we sell it, we'll debit accounts receivable and credit sales. We'll debit cost of goods sold and credit finished goods. That is all of your journal entries in a cost accounting system. All right, we're going to practice some journal entries real quick. You can look back in your book or if your neighbor in where you want to. I'm trying to find the right place for journal entries and got a lot of other work before we do that. All right, let's go to page 956. Let's go to problem 1A. Use your workbook. Start making some of those journal entries. Make some of those journal entries. Now you can look in your book, look at your neighbor, whatever. But we got to do journal entries on this chapter. And your first two entries will be on the screen, materials debit and credit accounts payable. Now you're going to issue materials to the factory and your debit work in process for the direct materials, factory overhead for the indirect materials, and your credit materials for the total. Now you'll handle labor here about the same way. Now, hopefully you're getting down to a C, whereas your debit your working process, factory overhead for the indirect labor, wages payable. Now you're down to factory overhead. Now, these are just selling expense, those are period costs. Administrative expense is period cost, and credit accounts payable for D part. And now G is more factory overhead, sale administrative, and prepaid expenses. Now look at F. Look at F. Depreciation on administrative building. Depreciation on administrative equipment. Which factory overhead takes place of depreciation expense. If it's on the office, it's expense. If it's on the factory, it's overhead. And you credit accumulated depreciation for all of them. Now, this is your predetermined rate here, debit work in process, credit factory overhead. Put the items into finished goods, and then you're gonna sell them. Your debit account receivable credit sales. That's just a run through of journal entries, okay? So take a minute and finish jotting notes down. All right, now, of course, your homework is to read this chapter and probably try problem 2A. It's similar to 1A with journal entry. Now we're gonna go back and learn to do a overhead rate. All right, we could get into LIFO and FIFO and all that with materials, but we won't. We did that with merchandise inventory. Look at exercise 8 if you would. Determine the factory overhead rate for factory one. Factory one, you got estimated factory overhead cost, 12,900,000. Estimated overhead hours, estimated machine hours, actual factory overhead cost for March, actual direct labor hours for March, actual machine hours for March. Determine the factory overhead rate for factory one. Take that 12,900,000 and divide that by the machine hours of 600,000. And what do you get?
21.5.
How much?
21.5.
Now multiply that by the actual machine hours of 610. That gives you your factory overhead. All right, now do that for factory two. Here you've got 10,200,000 and you've got estimated direct labor hours 250. Now divide 10,200,000 by 250. And then multiply that by 245. All right, what did you get if when you multiplied that rate by 245? What'd you get?
9,906,000.
Which one was this? Number 7? 7 or 8? Yeah, okay. All right, you should have got 21.50 an hour. Is that what you got, Cole? And you should have gotten 40.80, Monique. Is that what you got? All right, and here 610 multiplied by 2120. That's when you debit working process and credit factory overhead. And factory two, debit working process and credit factory overhead. All right, that's all there is to doing the factory overhead. Quite simple. So I'm going to add on one more exercise. So well, I saw another exercise, but now I've lost it. Do exercise 9, I guess. Do exercise 9 for homework. And that one problem. Okay. Let me finish up these few PowerPoints and we'll call it a day. You've got to know something about bid. If you could ever be a contractor, if you couldn't bid, hey, that job's going to cost me materials, labor, and overhead. You couldn't give somebody a bid on a house, materials, labor, and overhead. This new dorm out here that we'll get in $20,099. All right. All right. It will take materials, labor, and overhead. Now, period cost is selling and administrative expenses, which I mentioned one time. And your product cost of materials, labor, and overhead. Now, here was an example of an entry on period cost, but you also had it in that problem. So now here is your flow. We could put this if we wanted to, materials. All right. And it goes into work in process. Then we got wages. that goes into work in process. And then we've got overhead that goes into work in process. And we ship work in process out to finished goods. And then that goes to cost of goods sold. You did that in those journal entries. You did this chart in those journal entries, problem 1. Now, we could do job order cost system for a service business, but we didn't look at that today. You got to give a bid, materials, labor, and overhead. If you know what your product costs, then you could bid and sell it or give it a markup. All right, same thing here for a service business. If it's a service business, you've got wages payable. It goes into work in process. And work in process goes into cost of goods service. All right. And you still have factory overhead that goes into work in process. So if it's a service business, we've got labor and overhead, but you don't have materials in a service business, do you? You don't have materials in a service business. Okay, folks, that's all the PowerPoints. We've practiced a problem. You've got assignments, so we can call it a day.